Okay, so I figure I'm gonna start doing some newer things that I haven't done in the past because without exams and the final project, we have some more time to do some, I'll call it fun learning. But adding in some cool things that Python can do that, um, haven't had time in the past to do because we've run out of time, especially with the split class. So, um, what today is all about, I posted a note about it just now if you're listening same day, is um, here we have the old way that we used to get multiple like input from the user. We'd say like, do you want to run this program? Yes. Do you want to run again? Do you want to run again? Like, and that kind of is tedious because like this is what, one, two, three, four, five, six if you add no spaces, 6 lines of code, which is the efficiency part of programming not great. So like more efficient is, imagine here. Now I think I put on here. Say we were gonna get name, age, and favorite favorite food. So now, like more efficient if you know how many things you're gonna get. So like you know how many to get. So here, what you do is you still do the input, and we prompt them. Enter your name, age, and favorite food. Now, the big thing you have to do here is you have to tell them how you want to separate it. So separated by space. And normally we'd stop there. We'd just be like, okay, let's do that. But what happens here is because you put, and I keep pointing at my screen, I need to do this. Because we put these three things here, it won't know to put them into the three different variables unless we add this one thing, and it's called dot split. And this method literally takes things and splits them apart. Now, the fact that I put by space is the reason why this is empty. Or if you really wanted to be exhaustive, you could do this, but you can actually just do this. Now, to see if this worked, I'm just going to print name, print age, print favorite food. So the old way, I'm going to say no here, show you how the else like goes, okay, bye, enter your name. So Dan 31 pizza. And it took it, stored these three things into three separate variables, no problem. It just did it. So now what would have taken, we said 6 lines, now took 1 line. Huge efficiency upgrade. The trouble is though, we're not always asking for just different things. So we sometimes want them in a list, right? Like especially now that we have lists, you might be using lists for random things at this point. But probably the best way of doing it, I put it in the note here, but I'm going to explain it a little bit more. Is so it's really nice and easy. So let's say fave foods. Now you want to tell it, I want to make this into a list. I want it to be as many things as possible. So here, list, you tell, like you want it to be a list. The first thing you have to say is this variable is going to be a list. And then that, what it does is if you put list and then the stuff inside of it, it turns it into a new list. The iterable part, don't worry about that. But it tells you here, this will make it into a list. But because we're not going to make it empty, we're going to use this map function, which it's a mathematical term. When you map things, think about you've all done the first part of functions. Mapping is like that first diagram that we had with the two ovals that showed the x's and the y's, and that's a mapping diagram. So mapping is just that, like, I'm going to take these, put them into these certain spots in particular. So what you do here is we write map, and then in here the function that you want to do, and then what is this function, and then iterables. So the function is just, for us, what type is it going to be? So for us, our favorite foods are going to be strings. And how is it going to go through and figure this out? Well, it's going to be an input. It's going to be enter fave foods. And this time I'm going to actually say separate with comma, just so then you can see to separate with a comma. Do this here, and my input one. But now we have to do dot split again. But here, what I'm going to have to do is tell it, do it with the comma here. Then I close that one. Then I close this mapping. Then I close this list. So at the end, you have three. It looks like three brackets in a row, but it's just because this split ends this one, or this bracket ends this one. The second one ends this one, and the third one ends this one. You'll have an error if you try to do it that way. So then we print out fave foods. No, I actually should put print. So this takes in everything, puts it into a list. So this kind of keeps going. So the one above here, this is if you knew how many things you were going to get, and they were all / they are all different, because you wouldn't make a list of 3 different things that are associated with a person, like their name, their age, and their favorite food. But if you were making your favorite food list, you would want to put it into a list. You wouldn't have it as, like, I don't know, depending on how many favorite foods you have, you wouldn't have 10 variables. More efficient. You have a lot of input. You have a lot of input that is the same. So when we do this and we run it, I say no right away because I don't want to go through the old way. I say Dan. I say 31. I say pizza. Prints those out. Okay, so pizza, pasta. Now, I'm not going to put a space in there just to show you that it works out really nicely. Wings, taco, burrito. Indian food is really good. Burgers, hot dogs. So if you look here, it took everything that I typed in, separated them with like I didn't even put in spaces between there. And then what it did was, in my list, it took that exact word, it looked at this comma and threw it away and said, okay, now that's the end of my first word. Next word is this one. Threw it away. Now next word is this one. Next word is this one. And then if you look here with hot dogs, it took the whole thing because there was no comma. If I put hot, comma, dogs, then then I'd have 2 different elements, one being hot, one being dogs. Weird combo, like weird separated, good combo. So this, I would say, I know it's a lot of like code to do it, but this is like a really nice way of doing it. And this is helpful using the split, because where we'll get to is adding things from a list or something like input, either a list or whatever. But we can add things to files, and we're going to have to use the split function for that as well. So then when people type it in, they can just like put it into things, and then we're going to use this when we're reading files. So this is very helpful to split. But this is where I just want to show you something new, how we can either use lists for it if we know that we're getting multiple things of the same type, or if you're getting multiple things of different types, you can actually just use the split and put in as many variables as you want. This could literally be 10 variables long. You just want to make sure, because when we're talking to, like, we don't know who's going to use this. I could ask my wife to use this, and she doesn't understand the code part, so she would be reading this prompt, and she would have to use this and be like, oh, okay, I'll enter these things with a space. Because I know from a literal perspective, if you just wrote it like this, someone would put commas in there. And if you didn't put your split being commas, it would be a big error. It wouldn't actually get anything from that space. Or if they did like name, comma, and then space, it would take their name with a comma, which you don't really want. So you have to be careful of how you get that split. If you want to anticipate someone putting a space there, you could do this. And you add a space there, and then it'll be like, oh, I take the comma and the space and throw it away. Because not a lot of people understand the way you're coding it, so you have to think like a user for a bit to make sure that you understand how are they going to type it in, so then you can use the whole word right. I think that's it. There is another way on there. I'll bring it over here. The last way that I put on this note was just basically what happens is, like, it uses X a lot, and it's just because I stole it from a website. But basically, it's like, this is your list. Putting the square brackets around it makes it into a list as well. This here, str, just makes it into words again. And it's saying every time it loops, like, so it's going to make everything a word. But what it's going to do is use a loop to go through, split them all up, and then as it spits out the one value in this for loop, it makes it into a string. Reminder that, go back to normal view. Reminder that this here, if I wanted them to not be words, say I wanted them to be your favorite numbers, I would just put int. If I wanted to put different prices for things, I could just put float. If I wanted them to be a character, I just put char. So if I wanted, but remember, if you do this one, or is it? I think it's just this actually there. That's character, but character is one single letter. It can't be more than that. So this part right here is, I'm going to put it back to this, but this part right here is just the key to you telling the mapping function, the mapping method, what type of input it's going to be receiving. All right, that's it. But yeah, I'm going to try to do some more fun things. So if you know people who took it first semester, unfortunately, they don't know these things.